Welcome back, and our guest today is an Egyptian woman with such a specific social and academic interests. She works as a university professor in a field totally distant from literature, but she has publishes books with elegant literary style. She's also deeply concerned with women issue as she is a member of the National Council for Women. Our guest today is Dr. Sama Hosni. She's an assistant professor of statistics, faculty of economic and political sciences in Cairo University. Hello and welcome to our show.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Sama, you recently published a book named The Stories of Homeland. So how do you combine the interests of statistics and literature and writing? How does that work for you?
Well, this is one of the misconceptions about the academics, but I find no contradiction at all because people are always multifaceted, and the richer the personality gets, the richer, the more facets they have. So, and vice versa, of course. So, since I was a child, I always liked music. I played piano. I took singing lessons. I took writing lessons, scenarios and cinema and so on. So I think that there is absolutely no contradiction because this is my passion. This is my hobby, or these are my hobbies, like art in general. And writing is one of my hobbies. But I was always also very, very good at maths, and so I decided that I want to study math and teach math. But also I wanted to write literature. So I think that there is absolutely nothing that contradicts, especially because I decided to study statistics from a social perspective, from a social point of view. And my book is all social. It discusses all social topics in our homeland. That's why it's called Stories of a Homeland.
Yes.
So, so I study data, statistical data, about social topics like social cohesion, like homeless children, like many, many other topics. And this is what I wanted to depict in my, to write in my book.
Yes.
Of course, writing and issuing a book is not an easy job. Tell us more about this book and what kind of message you want to convey through this book.
This book, I started to write it when I was starting my PhD. I was done with my master's. I had all sort of problems going through higher postgraduate studies and all the myths about academia that people were just, telling you, well, an academic is something really I don't know what, and so on and so forth. But then I said, okay, I found that there are things that are not that good in academia, and I really want to tackle, especially in the field of statistics, because we lack statistics. We lack credible statistics in Egypt. We lack good numbers, reliable numbers, for so many reasons. So I said, okay, if I want to study social issues, I will move into writing something that is not academic, that is really nice for people to read, for the layman and the laywoman. If there is something called laywoman, because I'm concerned about women issues. So I mean for everyone to read and enjoy. I don't want to come up talking in statistics, equations, graphs. How many people are interested in that? But if I write a poem, a short poem, a quatrain specifically, how many people are interested in that? And there are so many messages I want to convey. So these are 180 quatrains. They are all in Egyptian dialect. And they tackle so many social issues that I am personally and specifically interested in. Women empowerment is one thing. Social cohesion is another thing. My PhD was a statistical index, creating a statistical index for social cohesion in Egypt, for Egyptian youth. And I was tackling also the issue of disability, the issue of homelessness, the issue of social and financial discrepancy between different parts of or factions of our homeland, I also talked about some of the political issues, like those. I started writing this in 2008. So, of course, the Egyptian revolution and all the emotions that were there, I wanted to mention this from a social point of view. So this is what the story, this is the story of the whole book, and that's why I called it Stories of a Homeland, because each quatrain talks about a different story.
Yes, regarding the Egyptian women, what about the main issues that you spoke about in this book, and how did you solve them?
It's more of as I said, it's not something really academic, and it's not a policy book. Rather than, I just wanted to tackle some issues for people to think about, because I believe that in Egypt in general, we really need to enhance cognition and the perception of every person about their own selves, and about the surrounding milieus that they're living in, and then eventually the perception about the whole country. So, for example, I noticed that there are so many problems. Gender issues start at home. I found that there are so many problems in parenting, especially if a house brings up a girl and a boy. And there are so many things. I was brought up in a very, very democratic house. I have a brother, an older brother, and we were always equal. And this, of course, was thanks to my father and mother. So I discovered that the power relationships inside the community starts all at home. So I talked about something like that in one of the quatrains. Another thing was about also marriage and who to get married to, rather after, like before parenting, actually. So I started early on, and it's all about the woman's self-esteem, and how does she see herself, and how does she see herself in a relationship. This is, I think, very, very important. Being romantic is something good, but there always has to have, you have to have the heart and the mind working together. Unfortunately, with very, very young women getting married at a very young age, sometimes emotions overtake the relationship, and then I discovered that there are so many divorces nowadays. And so I thought, okay, why don't we just talk about something like that, the emotions and parenting, or emotions and marriage. And so I talked about it as a story of a female horse, a free female horse, and how the female horse gets being free, and how can she be free, but at the same time she can accept being a mother and being
wife.
A wife, a mother, and yeah, in a relationship in general, and she can be giving again. I mean, freedom does not contradict with, or a woman's freedom does not contradict with her responsibilities. So there is always a fine balance between the two extremes. Yes. And we have to move a little bit towards the middle, just to have some balance.
Mm-hmm. Okay, when you start writing the book, definitely there were lots of things and thoughts in your mind. Absolutely. But what is the most thing that was worrying you?
It was Egypt, of course. In 2008 and 2007, there were, of course, they were like a couple of years before the revolution. So the corruption was really, really, really high. Until now, of course, it is high. But I mean, this is for me as a person in her 27 or 28 years of age. So I said, okay, corruption, this is one thing. There is also the lack of self-esteem of all Egyptians in general, not just Egyptian women, as I mentioned in the previous part. But we always, I think this comes from the occupation that Egypt has been occupied for so many years and decades and centuries. So I guess that's why we thought that anything not Egyptian is good, anything Egyptian is inferior. So I said, okay, why don't we just cherish the glory of Egypt? Yes, Egypt nowadays is not at its highest or its best situation, but we have so many good and seeds of potential prosperity that we really need to clean up and just put in the right soil and water. And this is what I decided to write. I thought about our history. There is a quatrain about our history. There are so many things about the social cohesion and the different factions of different religions in Egypt and how they can merge together. So many idioms and so many ancient songs and so many very, very specific Egyptian types like Nawal, for example. So I tackled these songs and tried to move from the original words to a new idea. And this is how I like to merge the past with the present problems. And then maybe when we think about these two things, the links between the past and the present, hopefully we can solve in the problem.
So how do you see the future of Egypt following the corruption that we have been living in for the past decades, and the Egyptian image about themselves and the Egyptians, how do you see themselves? How do you see the Egyptians in the future now, following 2 revolutions in about 2 or 3 years' time?
I find it I'm very optimistic about the future. I teach at university and I see students in their teens. And there are so many brilliant students in my school at least, and of course in so many other schools. But I can see the glitter in their eyes when they think about something new that they want to do. They want to be entrepreneurs. They want to be artists. They started to revolt even on their own difficulties in their lives. They started to be self-made. And fortunately, I can witness this very, very closely because I'm the founding director of a center for mentorship. And so they come to me with all their aspirations and hopes, and they tell me so many for counseling, but then I learn so much from them as well.
Yes.
So I'm very, very optimistic. They learned how to stand for themselves. Of course, it's not in the right way sometimes. Sometimes they're too aggressive, or sometimes they're still not courageous enough to stand up for themselves to the fullest. But I can find a trend, statistically speaking, a trend that is really promising, I think.
Yes.
Let me ask you about your personal dream. Of course, you've mentioned a lot that in Egypt, maybe also in the Arab world, of course in the Arab world, there is a lot of gender equality problems, and the woman is always being put in a level that she must be inferior than men. So what's your personal dream, and how do you want to see the Egyptian women in the future?
I just want the Egyptian woman to know her strengths and to stand up for herself. There was a very, very nice quote. I was traveling with a number of people from different countries, and I heard this quote: "If you're not at the table, you will be on the table." So I guess we need to be at the table. We need to speak up for ourselves. We need to respect every person, but again, respect ourselves first. This is from the women point of view, but for Egypt in general, I really need to see every single person with very high self-esteem and being sure that they can do something, that their future is better than today. So I just want to raise the hope of every person and tell them there is no impossible, just try.
Yes, Professor Dr. Sama Hosni, the Assistant Professor of Statistics of the Faculty of Economics and Political Science at the Cairo University. Thank you very much for being with us today on Nile Cruise.
Thank you very, very much. Have a great day.
And we are going to watch a report about the Orphans' Day in Egypt with Basma Taha.